Hey guys, hope you are doing absolutely amazing. My name's TJ Atkinson, your property and finance coach. For anyone that's getting into the whole personal finance or wealth creation or generational wealth topic, probably come across these two specific terms before: assets, liability. So it's important if we break down this term because everything with regards to creating wealth centers on those two words. And it's important for you to be able to differentiate what is an asset and what is a liability. Now, if you are thinking about this journey into creating wealth and generational wealth and personal finance and becoming rich and successful and wealthy, then I'm sure you've probably come across the book Rich Dad Poor Dad. And this is often where this debate stems from, because the author of Rich Dad Poor Dad, Robert Kiyosaki, said your home is not an asset. So I want to deep dive into this. I want to give you a better understanding on whether your home is actually an asset or whether it's a liability, because in most people's minds it's easy to assume that your home is an asset, and you wouldn't be terribly far from the truth. But it's important to understand whether it actually is an asset or whether it's a liability. So let's start by breaking down what an asset is. So an asset is a resource with economical value. That's important. It has economical value. So of course, if we're talking about your home at this point, then is your home an asset? Does it have economical value? Yes, it does. So at this specific moment, based on this definition, your home is an asset. So let's continue. So an asset is a resource with economical value that's controlled by an individual or maybe a company or a corporation who expects to see some sort of future benefit. So if we break down this term, you start to understand it better. So let's go based on this again. Let me break this down again because I really want you to understand this. It's a resource that has economic value. Does your home that you live in or reside in have economic value? Yes, it does. Do you expect to see some sort of value or benefit in the future? Yes, you do. So by that definition, your home is an asset. Now, Robert Kiyosaki in Rich Dad Poor Dad is pretty much intimating that if your home isn't paying you, then it's not an asset. And again, it's arguable because based on this definition, just because it doesn't pay you right now doesn't mean it's not an asset. So again, that's where the debate comes from. So I'm really going to break it down and open your mind to the different ways in which this conversation might be misconstrued, because I posted something on Instagram and Robert Kiyosaki said people buy homes, they buy liabilities, and everyone's like, hold on one second, what the heck? TJ, you're a property mentor, you tell people to buy houses, so how can Robert Kiyosaki be going against that? And in truth, I believe what he was talking about was investment properties versus homes that you live in. So let's go back to the definition again, because I really want you to understand this. An investment home categorically is an asset. The debate is whether the home that you live in is an asset or not. But based on the definition I've just given you, based on what an asset is, something that has economical value, your home, something that can potentially pay you out in the future, your home, technically is an asset. But let's talk about what a liability is also. So a liability is something that's owed. So you owe. So again, if you have a mortgage on your property, then could it be classed as a liability? Yes, absolutely, because you owe the bank and you have a mortgage on the property. So tick. So I see where the confusion comes from. Is your home an asset? Yes, it is. But is it also a liability? Yes, it is. So there are certain things that are clear-cut assets and certain things that are clear-cut liabilities, but the home that you live in isn't so clear-cut. So let's go deeper. Another definition of what a liability is something that takes money out of your pocket. So I've got to ask you this question. The home that you live in, or if you intend to buy a home to live in, does it put money in your pocket, aka an asset, or does it take money from you, aka a liability? It takes money from you because you've got to pay the cost, home insurance, pay your mortgage, gas, electric, and your utilities. So by that definition, it's also a liability. So again, I understand why people are confused. But a better question would say, is your home a performing asset? If it's not a performing asset, then it's a liability. We've just established that it's an asset, but is it a performing asset? Big difference. So I want you to catch on to this word. If you're talking about a home that you live in, then is it a performing asset? No, it's not, because it's not performing for you right now. It's taking money out of your pocket right now. But does it have future benefits? Yes, it does. Can it pay you out in the future? Yes, it does. But as of right now, is it performing as an asset? No, it's not, because you're living in the property. If you are living in the property and you are putting down money, it is taking money from you. Therefore, it's not performing. But the discussion gets a little bit deeper, because just a part of being a human being means you need accommodation. Yes, we need food and we also need accommodation. So the point is, you have to live somewhere. So sometimes that cost might actually be negligible, because unless I live on the streets, I've got to live somewhere. So it doesn't really class as an asset or a liability. It's a cost of being a human being that needs to reside somewhere. But again, it really just depends on semantics, and it really just depends on how you want to look at things. But again, go based on the definitions I've given previously. Something that puts money in your pocket, asset. Something that takes money out of your pocket, liability. But your home is needed because you've got to lay your head down, or you've got to look after your family, or you've got to stay somewhere. So let's go for better definition. Is it a performing asset? No. Your home is not a performing asset unless there is an underlying strategy when you bought the property. Before you buy a property, whether it's to live in, whether it's an investment, treat your home that you live in like you would an investment. So run the numbers. Spend on it in the way you would spend on it as an investment, because you've got to have a strategy. You don't overpay because you're going to live in the house, because what happens if there's a downturn in the market? See, this is where it gets really interesting, and you've got to understand the basis of things. So the problem here is, since most people don't end up selling their residential home, the home that they live in, it never fulfills the notion of being an asset. Going back to our definition of what an asset is, it's twofold. Does it put money in your pocket, whether it's today or whether it's in the future? So for most people, they would argue and say, well, it doesn't pay me today. Okay, cool, you're correct. But does it pay you in the future? If you never sell that property, then it never pays you in the future. Then it's just taking money from you on a monthly basis for 25 to 35 years. If it doesn't produce money, if it doesn't produce economical value at some point, then it's a liability. If there's a strategy and it produces some form of economical value today or in the future, then it's an asset. I hope you catch that. The traditional way to look at an asset is, does it pay you or does it take money from you? Look at it from that point of view. If you're going to buy anything, does it pay you or does it take money from you? And the house that you live in takes money from you unless there's an underlying strategy. So I think a better question people should focus on is, how do I turn my house into a performing asset, or what strategy can I implement on my home that I live in that will give me a better return, or that will help me turn my property into an asset, since your home doesn't actually pay you out. So a better question is, how do I turn my home, the home that I live in, my house, not my investment property, my house, how do I turn that into an asset? Find a way for your home to pay you. Now, you don't have to profit, so don't misconstrue this. You don't have to profit. The whole idea of removing something as a liability is so it doesn't cost you, so you're not paying out. So you don't have to profit from your home, but it shouldn't cost you. But if it balances your costs, for example, and I'm giving just an example, if your costs are £600 per month, find a way to generate £600 per month. AKA you are living for free. Therefore, your home is an asset and it's not taking money out of your pocket. So I'm going to go through a few ways in which you can get your home to pay you, therefore turning a home into an asset. Therefore turning your home into an investment that pays you out today or in the future. Number one, rent out your spare room. If you have a spare room, rent it out. There is something called the Rent a Room scheme, also known as the Lodger scheme, which allows you to earn over £7,000 per year tax-free. £7,000 per year is over £500 per month that you can generate from your spare room, therefore turning your home into an asset. Number two, rent your spare room on an Airbnb. So again, you were able to generate an income that will supersede or supplement the cost of running your home. If you're not doing A or B, then you're technically leaving money on the table, and by definition, your home is a liability. Number three, rent your entire property on Airbnb when you go on holiday. If you're going away from your home for 1 month, 2 months, 3 months, 2 weeks, 3 weeks, whatever period of time, rent it out on Airbnb to generate an income that helps you to cover at least 1 month of your mortgage or some of the costs that you're paying towards your home. Another one which so many people fail to utilize is refinancing your property, remortgaging your property, taking out equity and using it to find something else that pays you. So you take out some money, you put it into a better investment that pays you money that covers the cost of you living. So for example, if you've built up some equity in your property, therefore it has the potential to become an asset because it can pay you. You've taken out the equity, You buy another property, maybe a buy-to-let property. The rent derived from your buy-to-let property allows you to live in your home. Therefore, you've turned your liability into an asset. Problem is, most people never do that. And a lot of us and a lot of our parents have pent up equity in their property. They're all excited. Oh, I bought a property for 100,000. It's now worth 300,000 pounds. But no, it's worth 300,000 pounds on paper until you realize some of that equity or you sell the property. Problem is, most people don't sell the property. Therefore, that equity is pent up. It's held in there and it stays there. Therefore, it's a liability. Although you've got tens of thousands and maybe hundreds of thousands of pounds tucked away in your property. Have a conversation with your parents. And lastly, use your home as collateral for something. Your home has equity in it. Your home has money left in it. Use it to raise more money or use it as collateral for something that can derive a better rate of return. Look, a final way to actually argue whether your home that you live in is an asset or a liability, as I mentioned, is really based on strategy. If you have no strategy when you buy your property or you don't develop a strategy when you have a property that you live in, then it's a liability. No argument there. It's a liability. It doesn't pay you out today. It's not going to pay you out in the future unless you pull out equity or you sell the property. If it's your forever home, you're never going to pull out equity. You're going to live in there. It's a liability. As I mentioned before, if you have a strategy, and your strategy is a long-term strategy, which means you've bought a home, you're living in the home, but your intention is to pass it down to the next generation, then again, I can't argue with you that it's an asset because it means it will pay you out or pay out your kids or your grandkids or the next in line. It will pay them out in the future. So again, don't beat yourself up on whether something is an asset or a liability. Ask yourself whether it's a performing asset. And is it performing today? If it's not performing today, how do you intend to make it perform in the nearer future or in the further future? So if your goal is to leave something behind for the next generation, then again, it's an asset because it's going to pay out somebody in the future. I hope that helps, and I hope that really helps to clarify what is an asset, what is a liability, but also what is a performing asset and the different ways in which you can turn the home that you live in into a performing asset. Make sure you comment below. I'd love to hear your opinion.